Alright, so we got left off there at the very end and going to finish up formatting, and this is part 3 of the rent versus own project. We had setting it up, then formatting, and now here we are in the last part. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, now go up to the top and I'm going to start entering my information for my particular problem. I'm just going to go ahead and formatting it at the end. Make sure you do enter the percents correctly. You can type in the percentages, but if you want to format it as a percent, just go ahead and make sure you have the correct decimal places, 0.02, 0.07 for those. And loan to value. I'm just going to go ahead, click the first one, control to click the other ones. That should be dollar values. Go ahead, go up, dollar values. And this whole spreadsheet, I'm going to go ahead and just do it all in 100%, not decimals, but only the nearest dollar value. Except for the percentages will have 2 decimals. I'm just going to kind of match the sheet that I'm going off of. Need to find the loan amount. So that's going to be your loan to value ratio times the purchase price, 200,000. Again, go ahead, keep that as a whole number. No decimals, no cents basically. And we're going to find the annual debt service payment. And that's simply going to be a payment equals PMT tab. We're going to go ahead and use the formula function arguments box. It's just a nice convenient little box that I prefer to use. We'll do 5%, divide that by 12, and number of payments for the loan is going to be 30 times 12. But as you can see, I'm clicking the cells so that if you ever have a differing number of payments per year or a different loan term, you just go ahead and enter that there. It takes care of it in the entire sheet. You don't have to go and think, oh, well, how do I go about changing the formula? You just enter it in the boxes there. The present value, it's going to be the loan amount. And if you want to enter the future value, simple enough, 0. Now, hit OK. We're going to get a negative value here. Now that's going to go and be the annual debt service payment divided by 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply it times negative 12, and I'm actually, just to go and make it so that you can use different number of payments per year and still have this work, I'm actually going to multiply it times a negative whatever your payments per year is, so that way the formula always corrects for the annual payments amount. Now that's done. This is a positive value you can see here, and I just want you to know that this is how much money you're paying out, but I'm keeping it as a positive value just because particularly I like to go and have the number so that everything's flowing easily. And you know, contrary to what I said before, I'm going to keep the cents on there. I'm just going to have them show. It's easy enough, especially with dollars. You know, at least to the nearest 100 cent. Now I think about it, is going to be more accurate. Now the annual loan constant, it's one of those things you can look up, and I have a formula here, and it's nice complicated formula with this, and it's basically the loan amount times the constant gives you your annual payment on the mortgage. Well, that's wonderful, and that annual debt service or the annual payment is right there. But that means that the annual debt service divided by the loan amount will actually give you your constant. So instead of trying to do some complicated function, simply equals the annual debt service divided by your loan amount. And voila, annual debt service. This is one of those values. I'm gonna go ahead and have that to 6 or 5 decimal places. And your equity investment is very simply the purchase price minus the loan amount, $50,000 in this case. So, loan and equity calculation section done. Relatively easy, but it's something that has to be done just so that you get a general idea of some of the simple terms. Alright, the summary loan schedule is a very simple thing to calculate, but the first thing to do is basically calculate it in the payment, and the payment's the same every year. So I'm going to go and take that value, make it absolute, and just drag it. Beautiful. Some of these, obviously, it didn't fit. It's okay. Auto fit. Voila. Bada bing, bada boom. Drag over this window a little bit. Drag this so we can see it all. Voila. Beautiful. Now there's not a break there, it's just the numbers taking up. If I drag this a little bit more, you can see. I take that back. Actually, it did go and break that border. But no big deal. Draw a border in. Bam. And let's make that a little bit thicker. You know what? Edit, undo, 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 undo. So. Instead, I'm just going to Control C, Control V, and this time keep source formatting. Voila, it did not. See, it's kind of just a pain. It really is. It's easy enough to go and change the value if you want. And you can always just type it in if you really, really want to. But I'm going to go ahead and make it nice because I like to go and have what I do look nice. It's just a professionalism of mine. Not the worst thing in the world, but of course it's not always the greatest thing either. Time consuming, right? So moving on, rate, I'm gonna absolute this value. We're gonna absolute a lot of these values actually. So F4 divided by payments F4. It seems I see the 5% that should have been there is not. So, it's number of payment periods. And there is a reason for hard coding all these and having absolute references. It's going to be because I'm going to actually use this formula and drag it. Now, that said, you have to make sure that the right stuff is hard-coded if you're going to do that. Start period is going to be period 1. End period is going to be the period times the number of payments per year. And last but not least, don't forget about type. 0 is the end of period, not the beginning of period it's being paid. I'm going to work under the assumption it's going to be paid at the end of the period. You can do 1 for beginning of period. If you want, you can go ahead, put in a spot beginning or end of period payments. That's entirely up to you. That's something you can equip your sheet with. Just add another cell and then you could hard code it. Just select a cell, for example, that cell. Label it, whatever. It's not a huge deal, but one way to get as much versatility as you can. Now I'm going to drag this once, and it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to change a couple of things, because everything's hard-coded except this number 1 that you have should actually be this times the payments per year, and hard code that as well. And now it's going to give me a nice little value of the interest paid. Now, one thing to look at is your interest that you're paying should be going down every year. As you can all see here, the interest is going up. It's not how it's supposed to work. So you just got to look through, and I go ahead and give you a little bit of troubleshooting in Excel. Number of periods, total number of payment periods, present value, start period 12, end period 24. Interest. And interestingly enough, it follows that pattern except for in the first period, which I'm not 100% sure. I know why it is. Because somebody made a real simple mistake, but that's okay. It can be corrected pretty easily. You want to make sure that you start in the period 13. So plus 1 period. Now when I drag it over, we're going to have a really nice setup here. And as you can see, it worked. Simple little things that gotta do sometimes, and they're not always that difficult, but when you're not expecting them, I'll tell you what. So, now you have the payment and you have the interest. Guess what that gives you? The principal. So if we do equals payment times, excuse me, not times, plus the interest,